What's up everyone, welcome to the channel. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different. So welcome. If you are new to the channel, I normally do a bunch of like game reviews, things like that. I have a podcast called Rage Quit, so I post clips about that, and I do post memes also. But today what I wanted to do is kind of go over something that I've been not dealing with, but like kind of messing with a little bit, and that is Linux. So yes, as you can see, my Steam library is here, but I'm on Linux, and specifically Kashi OS, which is a distro, you should say, of Arch Linux. Now, this is something I've been kind of toying with a bit since a while. I mean, I have a lot more experience putting Linux on my laptops that I've used over the years. I mean, I started doing that back in 2019-ish, around there. Mostly just for fun. I just kind of, figured that was going to be a way to do something different. And a lot of the times, also the laptops I was putting Linux on didn't have support for the newer software. Like currently I actually I ironically enough use a 2014 MacBook Air with Arch Linux Endeavor OS specifically, and yeah, everything works fine on there. It's completely up to date, and it would not be up to date if I was using, what's it called, Mac OS. Yeah, because it would only stop at like Monterey or something like that. Maybe even before that, actually. But anyways, that's besides the point. Point is, in this video, I kind of wanted to go over what I'm doing on my Linux distro of choice, Kashi, one of the two, Kashi OS, and specifically on the desktop. And you might be wondering, like, well, why are you doing that on the desktop when, there's issues when it comes to like gaming and things like that? Well, gaming's actually a lot better on Linux nowadays than it was maybe like even a few years ago. Big part of that is due to Valve. Valve has done a very great job of actually making things very compatible for Linux, because they run they made the Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck is their product handheld, which I have one, and essentially it runs Linux. So there's not really a way to run any Windows games unless you install Windows on it. But at that point, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the Steam Deck. If you wanted a Windows machine handheld like that, you might as well go with like an RG Ally or something. But anyways, because of those efforts by Valve to support Proton, which is their compatibility layer to run games on Linux, there's been a lot of gamers who have decided to try out Linux as a result of that, and me being one of them. Now, the thing is that is kind of specific that you have to keep in mind is there's not going to be compatibility for every single game. Now, I do like checking this website called ProtonDB. This is kind of more useful specifically if you have a Steam Deck. A lot of the reports from people are going to be aimed towards if you have the Steam Deck. But, as you can see on here, they kind of have a rating system, and they show whether something is Steam Deck verified or playable, and also what kind of state it's in. So like, we look up Space Marine 2, which is a game that recently came out, it's at gold, and you can even click on it and kind of see what people have done in terms of like tinkering to see if there's anything that needs to be tinkered with to make it work even better than it does out of the box. And they even support the people who leave feedback. They even kind of give their specs, and like I said, a lot of times people will specify here if they're using like say the Steam Deck or something instead. Now, this is a very useful website, But what also will sometimes happen is there'll be some games that are not on Steam. Now for that, you have other tools like the Heroic Games Launcher. I can spell heroic, and that will be for like Epic, GOG. You can install other games through here too, and this uses Proton as well. So that's another choice. Now there are some downsides. I mean, because I think it's the website Are We Anti-Cheat? Yeah, Are We Anti-Cheat Yet? So if we go there, there's some games that you'll see on here say denied, and that's because the developer has specifically said, no, we don't want to support Linux with our anti-cheat. And anti-cheat is one of those things that some of these games rely on to make sure that there's integrity, the player base, so that no one's actually using some form of cheat or hack tool in order to actually gain an advantage over other players. So that's the unfortunate thing. There's some games like a big one, Valorant. Not going to be able to play that. Not that I do, so it doesn't really matter to me. But it's an unfortunate thing, and maybe eventually it will change. And the reason why is because if we look up what the Linux market share is, according to StatCounter at least. So Windows kind of fluctuates a little bit, but it could be anywhere between like 70 to 73-ish%. That's accurate, considering that so many people rely on Windows, especially when it comes to gaming. But if you look up here, right now, OS X, which is Mac OS, is at 15%. Pretty respectable. Understandable too that it would be so far behind Windows. Unknown, don't know what that's supposed to mean, but Linux is at 4.5%, which is actually up from where it was, because let's see, yeah, so August 2023 it was at 3.18%. Now part of that might be, hey, the Steam Deck is really popular. Part of it might also be Windows is kind of not doing the greatest in terms of making people happy, nor is Mac OS to some extent, but Windows is really, what we're talking about here when it comes to gaming. So, this number, 4.55%, it is going up, and it actually is, surprising, considering that Chrome OS actually is being used a lot in the education system. So you'd think that there would be a lot more Chromebooks out there, but I guess not. So why did I decide to switch over to using Linux? Well, finally they started to have HDR support, because I have a very nice monitor. Paid a lot of money for it, but I have a very nice monitor, and it has HDR support. And in fact, actually, if I don't use it with HDR support, this LG Ultra Gear Plus, it's an OLED, so without HDR it looks very, very dim. And that's why when I switched over to it and I was still primarily using Windows, I really needed to have HDR on all the time. And so now that Linux more so supports that, it's a lot easier on the eyes, we'll say, because otherwise it would not be a fun experience. It would not feel like I'd be gaming on an OLED. It would feel like I was gaming on an older monitor. But that's a very specific use case for my hardware configuration. The other reason why I decided was because of a thing called recall, and we'll look up what that is right now. So Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, decided to do something that a lot of people felt was kind of sketchy, and for good reason. So you might have seen some people talk about already, but just to sum it up, essentially Microsoft's recall feature is a feature that's going to be built into Windows 11. Right now it's really only available for the devices that have a NPU, some AI cores on the processor. And that specifically is allowing this feature to work, which it essentially, to my understanding, it takes a screenshot of everything you do on your computer with some limitations, because you have the ability to go in and, customize what it will be denied taking screenshots of and things like that. And from there, it then uses the power of the AI cores on the processor to search through the screenshots that it took. And I think the demo thing they said was, say, if we were looking for a brown leather briefcase, because we remember that on some website, but we don't remember anything else. You could look that up and it would pinpoint exactly what you were looking at, and from there you could kind of figure out what you were looking at and, go from there. Now, that may sound kind of useful, and I'm sure it has its use cases, but to me, when I heard that, I was like, that sounds not okay. Granted, I don't have a computer with, a processor that supports that, but the fact that Microsoft was thinking that that was an okay decision in my book, it wasn't really something I wanted to entertain, you could say. Now, there was some people who came out after, and figured out, hey, it's actually really not safe, to the point that like you can easily just run a Python script and everything that got saved in this recall feature could be, databased and saved to an external place, and just the feature in general felt like it was a attack vector for someone to, have access to a lot of things, like say your banking information if you go to do banking on your computer. So yeah, I don't really want to even deal with that, but I was also kind of just getting a little fed up with some stuff that was happening on my Windows partition. Things like, I'd go to record something and all of a sudden I'd see that the Windows settings for the input of my microphone through my audio interface, my mixer rather, would be set to like 49%, even though I specifically would tell it, do not change. Regardless of what applications may say, do not change this. Keep it at 100%, because I'm handling all the input volume and everything through the mixer, so the software doesn't need to do anything. Now, it would keep changing on me, so it was really annoying. It's a little bit better now, but I'm also not really in Windows that much anymore. So, haven't really had that issue on Linux, like at all. But, those two things was kind of like a culmination of me trying Linux. And I did try a couple other distros before, setting sites on CachyOS, and yeah, they didn't really work for me. It was like I was using Bazite OS, which is kind of like a community built Steam OS like thing, like a distro like that. The downside about that being that it was semi-immutable, and I have a mixer, GoXLR specifically, and yeah, this software didn't want to run unless I install it to the system, and with an immutable system you can't do that. So that was the problem I was having there. And then when I kind of subverted the immutability, it broke updates. So, and then I tried vanilla Fedora, and this is definitely a skill issue on my part, but yeah, that was not fun to set up. I think I set that up like 3 times and couldn't get specific things to work. And even when I got specific things to work, it was breaking other things. And I have a different controller now than I did then. I had a Xbox controller that I would use for games, and yeah, it wouldn't register that it was connected. So that's a problem. Also, a problem I was having, this was around the time that, like, right before the Elden Ring DLC came out, and every time I was trying the Elden Ring DLC, or sorry, not the DLC, just the Elden Ring base game, it was just a stuttery mess. And so then when I found OS, I tried that, and well, guess what? It stuck, because not only can I install everything I need, but Elden Ring ran like a charm, and everything else I've tried has ran great also. You know, and it's not even just been gaming stuff. Like, I've done other stuff. I use Notion to take notes for the podcast that I do, and you know, that's been fine. I did have to install a third-party Discord because specifically screen sharing wasn't working in the Discord app, but that is a known issue with the official, well, not, is it really official? I don't know if it's official or not, but like the base app, it just doesn't work on Linux properly for some reason. But yeah, I mean, like, even, you know, I've been playing Deadlock recently with the boys and haven't had any issues. Like, I've actually, I don't think, yeah, I haven't played any games with the boys on Windows in, I think, like 2 months now. Maybe a little bit more than that, actually. Like, every time we played a game, I've just been able to launch it, join them right away, and, you know, maybe some hiccups here and there, but not anything big that causes me to be like the odd one out, you know. And Deadlock, that game's not even officially out yet. It's still in an early development build, like an alpha, and yeah, it works like flawlessly at that. So Proton is great. I mean, there's some downsides, like if I tried launching Deadlock now, like it would be stuck loading shaders or calculating Vulkan shaders for maybe a couple minutes, but not anything that's like, oh, okay, let me go back to Windows at this point, you know. Now I do have to go back to Windows for stuff every now and then, and mostly it's in relation to video editing. Like, I use DaVinci Resolve, which does have a Linux port or version of it that is official from Blackmagic. Now the thing is, it sucks. I haven't tried it, but seeing other people use it, I can see that it sucks. It's only supported on specific distros, and even then, like, some of the codecs don't work. So that, at that point, it's not really worth for me to even try to use it on Linux. And so because of that, I do still have a Windows partition on a separate drive. And, you know, I boot into that to video edit, and that's about it at this point. Oh, and when I do the show, you know, the podcast, I do also hop into Windows and do things through there because everything's already set up. And I did try doing the show one time, but there's like some specific bug that I have sometimes. You know, I use Brave. Maybe it's a Brave browser bug specifically, but like if I drag this over to a second window and then back and forth and all that, and sometimes what happens is like the header spacing is wrong, and what I had specifically as an issue that time that I tried it with the show, like my OBS camera froze. So I don't know what was going on there, but anyways, that it's not a huge deal. Like, really, at the end of the day, I'm only spending like maybe 10% of my time in Windows at this point, and I think that's really good. Like, I have no problem with that 10% because I don't deal with the problems of Windows that often. And yeah, I'm just having a great time on Linux so far, and I really would recommend more people to check this out because you know, I mean, yeah, there's some tinkering, so you have to be okay with that. But if you're okay with tinkering around and, you know, maybe watching some videos every now and then to try and see if it's even something for you, I'd say yeah, give it a shot because I feel liberated from Windows and Microsoft in a sense. And, also the computer is really smooth with Linux. Like, it just feels like everything, for the most part, until I run into a bug or something here and there. But like everything, especially in gaming, like has been fine. Then again, I don't play anything that really relies on anti-cheat. So if you do play something that relies on anti-cheat, I could see that being an issue. But like I played Warhammer Space Marine 2 and had no issues, except I had to disable the overlay. But that's like a small thing, I don't even need to use the overlay in that game, the Steam overlay. But yeah, so definitely I'd say check it out if you have the chance to spend some time. And I recommend it. If there's any issues you come across, you'll probably have to fix them yourself. And I would give advice if you have any questions. You can leave a comment of something, and can't guarantee I'll be able to help, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with gaming on Linux right now, and I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I should have done this change earlier, but I also feel like I couldn't have done the change earlier, specifically because of the hardware I use. So yeah, it's only going to get better, right? So, but anyways, that's it for today. I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on Linux gaming in 2024, and recommend people to try it out if you have never even looked into it. Maybe this video will be the first thing you see about it, and you'll see that there's actually a alternative operating system to Windows for gaming. So yeah, anyways, I'll leave it with that because I'm just gonna ramble otherwise. So stay tuned for other content, and if you like what you see, then let me know. See ya.